Our guest tonight is WWE Hall of Famer Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. How you doing?
Hey guys, doing well.
Well, at the upcoming.
How about you guys? You guys are calling from Philadelphia, right?
Oh, I'm from Philadelphia. Brandon Galvin's from New York City, and Mike Chiari's actually from Buffalo, New York. So we are all over the East Coast. We all got hammered by the nor'easters.
Well, especially you, Mike, being up there in Buffalo. I bet you really got hammered.
You know what? Honestly, it wasn't too bad this year compared to most years. I got kind of lucky, but, you know, I've been through some things.
He still lives in Buffalo, so it's good enough anyway.
Yeah, Buffalo customarily gets hammered no matter what.
It does, yep.
Yeah, well, Mike, don't worry, Ricky. Mike's been getting hammered for the Storms and for all of us making up for it. At the upcoming PCW Ultra Show in Wilmington, California on May 4th, you will be the special guest referee in the light heavyweight championship match between Shane Strickland and Douglas James. What are you expecting from this match, and who do you think walks out as the champion?
Well, you know, this would be the first time that I'm going to be doing an appearance for this company, doing some research on it. As of late, I understand it's a pretty stand-up company for an independent company. The crowds that they draw are, well, for me to say, to be amazing, for an independent show. So they must be very professional. I've done guest referees and other appearances, and I'm just the type of guy, as you know, being a babyface all my life, just call it straight down the middle. Although in the matches that I've been involved with as a referee, sometimes the heel likes to get up in my face a little bit. And even at 65, I don't put up with the crap. And most times than not, the poor guy gets chopped down a few times. So just a word of warning to any one of the two participants that, I'm not afraid to throw some of my stuff at them that I've done over the years.
Well, one of the most anticipated matches on the PCW Ultra card is the battle between Chelsea Green and Tessa Blanchard for the Women's Championship. What are your thoughts on the rise of women's wrestling and the possibility that we could see two women main event WrestleMania next year?
Well, I'm very happy with the World Wrestling Entertainment Company, to which I still work for in the last several years, 3 or 4 years now, that they have really given the women a chance, because I feel that we really have some good athletic women, wrestling out there, and they work just as hard as the guys and put on a heck of a show. I know Tessa. I've met her on a few occasions, and I've watched her work in the ring. And, there's probably some gray areas that she needs to work on, but overall she seems to be doing well every time that I've seen her work in the ring. If you don't know it, I'm sure you probably do, though. That's Tully Blanchard's daughter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and of course my history with Tully, going back to, I'm going to say 82-ish, 83-ish, 84, in that time frame. We've had many of good matches I've had with her dad. But the women thing is really stepping up here as of late. And, on any given night, on any wrestling card, a lot of times those women will either steal the show for the evening or do just as well for the guys.
Mike Chiari, next question.
You've done a lot of refereeing since retiring as an active in-ring competitor, and a lot of fans probably remember you for your contributions in both TNA and ROH as a referee. How key is a good referee in terms of putting together a strong match? And also, what is it about refereeing that continues to pique your interest?
I do this because at least it allows me to get to step in the ring. I don't work or wrestle anymore, but this is about as close as I can get, at this period in time in my life and in my career. I do see a lot of on the independents to which it's either the wrestler and or the referee. It's almost like the referee is an invisible guy out there. I know the fans understand that things are choreographed and things are thought out and talked about and put together, but you got to have the referee out there as the third guy in a single match or the fifth guy in a tag match, and they've got to understand that there are rules. And what I see a lot of is wrestlers doing what they want to do in front of the referee, and not even abiding by any of the rules. Fighting out on the floor, we have a 10 count, but you can throw that away. Stuff in the ropes, we have a 5 count, you can throw that away. But they have to understand that other guy in the ring plays a vital part in the storytelling that you're trying to put out there for the fans. And it just seems too many times that I see that the referees is just being abused or not even noticed during a match, and to which when I worked, he played a major role. So, but in my case, I'm going to let the guys know that you got a 5 count on the ropes, you got a 10 count on the floor, and if you're doing stuff in front of me that's illegal, I'm going to give you I use the 3-strike rule. I'm going to give you a couple of warnings, and on the third time, I'm going to disqualify your ass, and I don't care what the finish is. So that's just the way I am, and that's just the way I feel. So it might sound pretty strong right now, but these guys got to understand that the referee is part of the match.
Brandon Gauman?
Well, I love that answer because you've been praised throughout your career for the psychology of your matches by making sure things were done that made sense and fit into the narrative of the match. So when you watch matches today, is there somebody that you feel does a great job following in your footsteps?
Well, we have a lot of guys at the WWE wrestling school, the training grounds there, and we have a lot of guys that, even on the independent circuits, I will say this too, there's a lot of good athletes out there. But a key thing that I see missing is being able to put it all together in order to tell a story, because in every match you can tell a story. There's a lot of guys that do a lot of stuff in the course of a match. None of it ties together. I use the phrase, connect the dots. Does it make sense? And a lot of times and also while I'm out there, I'm going to be doing a seminar on Saturday, and a lot of my focus is on telling these guys how to tell a story in a match, to which storytelling in a match gets your fans involved. And if you can get them involved in what story that you're trying to tell in your match, it just makes it all the easier, because after all of us in the entertainment business, regardless if you're doing wrestling or if you're a rock and roll guy or whatever, you're out there performing, and you work for the response from the fans. And I know a lot of guys, they get response from the fans, and it's only because it's a spot, but does it tie in with the story? And I feel that makes you a real pro in our business if you're out there to get the response from the fans, and at the same time go out there and being able to tell a story in your match. But I focus a lot on that. And I'll give you a real quick example. I had 2 guys in a championship match on the independent show. And they came up to me for some advice, and I said, look, you're the 2 best that this company has to offer. I want you to go out there and tell a story that this is a championship match. And then at the end of the match, you come back and see me, and I'll let you know. So at the end of the match, they came back, and they had their chest stuck out walking in the locker room. And they said, what'd you think? I said, well, your match was all over the place. It was not a championship match. And one guy goes, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean by that? I said, well, the object of the game is you had the good guy here, the babyface that was the champion. You're the heel, and the promoter decided to change the championship, switch belts, switch the belt and put it on you. I said, I looked at babyface. What you're trying to do in the story that you're telling is you're trying to hold on to this championship, and you, the heel, you're trying to get it from him. Now, there were several times during the match to which you dropped some big bombs on the guy, but you didn't cover him. Like a Jake Roberts DDT, in respect to Jake Roberts. If you do a DDT on a guy and you're trying to win his championship, and everybody knows that that was a finish hold from one of the probably best psychologist guys in our business, and you don't even cover him, what kind of story are you trying to tell with that moment? And they looked at me like, oh, wow, that's right. I did a big move on this guy and didn't even cover him like I'm trying to beat him. So it's all about that when I try to teach why you do it and when you do it, and there's a reason behind it. And so those guys walked away. They did do a match, and there was so many holes in it that I pointed out to them that I hope at the end of the day that moving forward that they would apply some of the things that were talked about.
Well, you mentioned your wrestling seminar. That's a PCW wrestling seminar on May 5th in Bell Gardens, California. Well, and I want to ask you, you said how you took those guys aside and helped them. How much pride do you take in bestowing your knowledge on the next generation of wrestlers?
I take right now in my life, it's what I do a lot of and happy to do it. I remember in the first couple of years when I was coming up through the ranks, how some of the old timers would take me to the side at the end of a match and critique my match. Most times it was the guy I was in the ring with. I understand today's guys, a lot of times when they get in the ring, they're looking across the ring at maybe a guy with the same amount of ring time, maybe some guys 6 months, some guys 1 year, some guys 2 or 3 years. But when I was coming up through, most nights I was looking across the ring at a 15 to 20-year journeyman. And every night he was taking me to school. And he knew what his position was, and it was to pass the torch. And hopefully by doing this, keep the business going. And, bringing guys up that were green and a rookie, and hopefully, show them the way. So I find out at this point in time in my life, this is what I'm doing. And I understand that, wrestling now has changed as opposed to what it was when I worked. But I still think you can apply some of the things that I talk about and just put your 2018 twist on it and still make it work. So to answer you quickly, and it's a lot of pride for me. And it's a way of me giving back and passing the torch, and hopefully some talent will look back on the day that I was there teaching them and reflect, and hopefully they'll understand how it helped.
Mike Chiari?
A lot of people point to you as the perfect model for what a great babyface is supposed to be in wrestling, and you're one of the few wrestlers who never turned and went to the dark side, so to speak. But is there any part of you that wishes that you would have had even a brief run as a heel? And how do you think that you would have fared if you had that chance?
Well, I'll tell you a true story. Back in '91, I went to Vince and Pat Patterson and asked I'd like to do a turn. And they both shut me down without a hesitation and said it would not work. You were the premier babyface. And I said, my answer back was, look, I've been in the ring with the best heels in the business. I actually believe that I could work as a heel because I've been in the ring with the best of them. And they said, Vince said, bottom line, he said, I think it would probably hurt your career. And they just shut it down. Now, at the time, guys, I was a bit turned off. I was a bit disgruntled because I wanted to be able to work as a heel. At that time, I had been in the business, I think I was approaching around 17 years. And I knew I was getting to the twilight of my career. And I just wanted to be able to experience working on, as you guys call it, the dark side, being able to feel what that's like. And I was upset about not being able to do it at the time. But looking back on it now, I'm happy and pleased that I didn't, that they did talk me out of it and did not allow it. as because, like you said earlier, one of the few guys in the business that wrestled close to 20 years actively and stayed the same way that he started in the business. There's just a few of us that have done that. And I'm happy to say that I'm one of those few guys now. I reflect back, and I'm happy that I was turned down.
BG?
Well, you mentioned that refereeing allows you to still have a role in the ring, but has WWE asked you about wrestling another match recently, and is that something that you would consider in the future?
To wrestle?
Yes.
I really physically can't, only because about, I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, I took a hard blow in the ring. I was thrown down really hard and ended up with a brain bleed. It's called a subarachnoid hemorrhage, to which the doctor said, my brain doctor said, basically your left side of your brain tried to separate from the right side, and it was because of the G forces. And so that's why I don't. My heart really misses it. I feel physically I could do and perform well, even at the age. But the smart part of me is like I've been warned that I was given a second chance in life because there was a 60% fatality rate with my type of brain injury. The 6 out of 10 didn't pull through, and I did. And so I don't take that very lightly, that God left me to do other things. And so that's why I'm able now to pass it forward and try and teach and have a little ring time with the guys as a referee.
Oh, we're very glad you're still here and still refereeing. We would know what they would do without you. Mike, you have next question? Okay.
I didn't know if you guys knew anything about that injury. I was in an intensive care in Tampa General. I was in intensive care in Tampa General for over 3 weeks.
Wow. No, I didn't. That wasn't reported. That's one thing. We didn't hear anything about that leading into this. We did a lot of research doing these questions, and I had not read about that.
Yeah, it was. And the problem is that the bleed was down inside my brain, and my neurosurgeon told me, he said, we're just unable to have access to get to it. He said, most brain bleeds, it happens on the surface. You hit your head on the windshield, you get hit in the head with a pipe. He said, we simply drill a little hole in your skull and relieve the blood, the pressure. But yours is down inside in between your two halves, and we have no access of being able to get to it. So it has to stop on its own. And when he said that, and then I said, or else what? He said, well, sorry to say, Ricky, but you'll die.
Jesus.
That was my situation. I mean, yeah, you're laying there, and this is all you're doing. I was on a holding pattern, and it was just hoping in each day that the bleed would stop. And it did. And, I'm here.
Thank God. Jeez, we gotta change this. We gotta switch up to something more positive now. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad. Mike, you go.
Yeah, well, I think any longtime fan of wrestling has great respect for your WrestleMania 3 match against Randy Savage, obviously. But one thing I've always been really curious about is WWE's decision-making regarding WrestleMania 4, because there was an opportunity for them to do a rematch between you and Savage in the World Title Tournament, and it was even alluded to leading up to WrestleMania, but it didn't happen. Do you know why WWE might have shied away from that, and do you feel like they might have dropped the ball by not giving fans that classic match one more time?
Well, honestly, I don't know the reason. I didn't question them. I had thought when I was looking at the brackets, and I had Valentine in the first round, and Savage was in the second round, that I felt myself, what a way for me to pay it back to Randy for what he did for me for WrestleMania 3. And, of course, I would love to put him over right there in the middle. It was a surprise to me to know that wasn't going to happen. I don't know if there was politics involved. I never questioned it. But, dropping the ball on a situation like that, I think the fans would have really enjoyed to see a return type match between Randy and I, even though it was only in the second round of the tournament. But yeah, I was looking forward to paying him back, and really giving him a good look.
BG, final question.
Your match with Randy Savage from WrestleMania 3 is one of our personal favorites. Is there something specific that stands out to you about that match that perhaps fans may not be aware of, or you feel goes overlooked?
Well, I'm a lot of Q&As that I do at appearances and Comic Cons or conventions and so forth. They always ask about that match, and I'll say, that match was completely scripted and put together, and the reason was Randy and I did not have any opportunity to work with each other leading up to WrestleMania 3. A lot of main event guys are able to work with their partner and fine-tune their match before a big pay-per-view, but Vince wanted my debut to be on that day. So the only thing that we could do was put together something that would work just from gut feeling. We didn't know if it was going to work with the fans. We didn't have a chance to try it and fine tune it, and hope, thank God what we had put together, worked. And I think the biggest thing, I wanted to make it a championship match. That was my answer to Randy, because he asked me, "Hey, what do you want to do, Dragon? What do you want to do?" Yeah, so I said, "Randy, we got to make it a championship match." He said, "Well, I think you ought to go after my throat. I came off the top rope with the bell on your throat." And I said, "Well, I kind of think everybody would expect that. But, if we could have a moment in the match to which, I get a little payback, and then let's move on to make it a championship match." And what I meant by that was we had 21 false finishes in a match that went less than 17 minutes. And I thought the story that we're trying to tell here, Randy, is that I'm going after your belt, and you're trying to hold on to it. So with all those false finishes, and finally, number 22 was the final 1, 2, 3. And he said, "Well, we're talking about my dive off the top." And I said, "Well, I think everybody, again, would kind of expect that. Let's just catch him out of the blue." And it was a simple, he picks me up for a slam, and I hang on, end up in a small package. And a small package is probably one of the most prostituted moves in or false finishes or finishes in our business. And, just trying to, I said, I think anything that we do at this point in time in the match is going to pop the fans. Anything, because we had 21 attempts. And so, and it worked. It really did. And what surprises me here, 31 years later, that I still got people, you guys and others, that still talk about that match, and it's, 31 years later. I just wish Randy was around, that we could share the moment more often together here lately. But he's not. That's what I'm talking about when you make a championship match, that, he's going after me, I'm going after him, and anytime you get the opportunity to try and beat the guy and try to cover the guy, and the fans start to get with it.
Fantastic. And one of the greatest matches of all time. Well, another huge thank you to our guest tonight, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Catch him refereeing the light heavyweight championship. What did you say?
Hey, let me tell you something real quick. I read somewhere, can't remember. Memory's not all that good with me anymore. I've been dropped in my head a few times. But, I read somewhere that they took a recent poll, and this is through the fans, old generation and new, and that match with me and Savage, I think, ended up being like second of all WrestleMania matches.
Yeah, WWE.com.
Really,
yeah, the website WWE.com did a whole special heading into this WrestleMania about the greatest WrestleMania matches, and I think it did come in second all time.
And that did surprise me, because of how many matches they usually have on a WrestleMania?
Like 10 maybe?
Yeah, 10, 8 to 10, and you take that times 34.
Mm-hmm.
So it's over 300 WrestleMania matches, and we ended up number 2, which really surprised me, and it just popped me. It really did that the fans thought so much of it.
Especially you saying you kind of put it together on the spot too, or put it together without really practicing. That even makes it even more impressive to me.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying. We were just going by a couple of good pros that felt they knew what they were looking for, and Randy was very open to my suggestions for the two of us to put this together, and. I mean, if we had a chance to fine-tune it, like maybe have a handful of matches under our belt before we did 3, it might have been even better. But I will tell you this, in looking back, people have asked me, Ricky, is there anything that you would have changed? I said, yep, and this is what I would have added. I would have added me coming off the top with my dive, and the referee get down to count, and it'd be a 1-2, and I would have Savage kick out. And really, really throw a monkey wrench into the fans when they saw that it'd be the first time anybody ever kicked out of my finish. Looking back, what's that?
I wouldn't have changed a thing, and I think that's what makes it. We went back and watched it we do something on the show called Match Commentary, where we go and we watch old matches and commentate over them. Stone Cold does it as well, and when we watched that match. It just seemed like you guys were on autopilot. Everything was working together. It seemed like you guys were you knew what the guy was going to do before he did it. And there was no need to say, hey, this is what's coming up next. It just seemed so fluid. And it went perfect. And that's the thing. The abrupt ending, the false finishes, it really had, even when I've watched that match probably dozens and dozens of times throughout my life, but I'm still biting on false finishes, even though I know it's not the real finish. And I think that's truly a testament of just how that has stood up to the test of time.
Hey, would you guys like to know when the first time I was able to watch that match back?
Sure.
Yeah.
What was the year of WrestleMania 25?
Is that 2009, I think? Maybe?
9. Yes, that was the year I got elected into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
That was also the time when the company put out a 3-disc DVD of my career. That was the first when I got that. Of course, they gave me a bunch of them, and I slid them in and watched them. And that match, of course, was on one of the DVDs, and it was the first time I was able to watch that match. We did that, and from 1987 to 2009. What is that? 18 years?
You better ask somebody else. I'm terrible at math. I went to college for English. I didn't go for math.
No, it's 22.
20. How many?
22 years. We're not the right people to ask about math.
Okay, but it was over 20 years before I actually watched that match that everybody talked about.
Wow. I watched it enough for the two of us during that period. Don't you worry.
There were times in that when I'm watching it, I'm trying to remember what was coming up next, and there was several times during the match that it blew me away because I couldn't remember, and then when I saw it, it hit me, and I was like, deja vu half a dozen times when I was watching the match. So then I had to plug it back in and watch it over again, and then the third time. My memory came back to me altogether, and I was able to call it as everything was happening and move after move after move after move after move. So, I mean, the first time I watched it, like you guys, it blew me away because it caught me off guard several times.
That's how you know it's a good match, when even the participants are being caught by false finishes. I love that. Absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
Well,
Anyway.
listen, a huge thank you for taking the time to be our guest, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Catch him refereeing the Light Heavyweight Championship match during PCW Ultra's May the 4th Be With You show at ILWU Memorial Hall in Wilmington, California on May 4th. Tell the fans how else they can support you in any way.
Well, over the years, I've always been a big supporter of all my fans. I don't know if this is a lot, even by today's standards. I've been off TV for, maybe 25 years or so. But to my house here in Florida, I average about 150 to 200 pieces of fan mail a month. And I take the time to answer every single one of them because I'm so thankful for what they've done and given me the support over the years. I wouldn't have what I have. I have a nice home here in Florida. I live on a golf course. I want for nothing. And every time I have an opportunity with fans, whether I'm at a little general store, I'll take pictures, sign autographs. I even carry them in my vehicle so I could sign some and give it to them wherever I'm at here in Florida. But it's always been a huge thank you to all the fans who've come out over the years.
Also, don't forget PCW Wrestling Seminar on May 5th, Bell Gardens, California. Go out and train with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in a very unique seminar, which should be absolutely fantastic.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Hey, thank you for your time, Ricky Dragon Steamboat, and we really appreciate it. Good luck moving forward with everything.
Okay, great. Maybe we can do it again in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely.